before I go work out, I wanted to follow up on what I consider to be a topic that's connected to one I made recently about being self-taught versus learning from an instructor. This is one of those essay topics from that essaywriter.com website that I was telling you guys about. This topic is by comparing and contrasting between book knowledge and knowledge from life experiences. What knowledge source is the most significant? And honestly, at the end of the day, I think that regardless of what you're doing or what you're thinking about, experiential learning will always be the superior method to learning, because experience is, the way I like to describe it, tailored to you, meaning that whatever it is that you're out there experiencing, you put yourself more than likely in that situation for that to be your learning moment, your learning experience, your learning time. Therefore, it's going to be the most proper for you. And the whole point of life is for you to live it, of course, but living it with purpose. And to me, purpose comes in a sense from specializing on something. What kind of leader, for example, if you're in management, do you want to be? What vision do you have for yourself? But if you're in charge of a group, why should they follow you? That type of thing. And I think that in a situation like that, experience becomes relevant, because when you're dealing with a group, you're going to run into different characters, different backgrounds, different attitudes, different opinions, different feelings. So what better than having experience to deal with that? Now, I'm not saying that learning from a book is not useful, because I think that I can take concepts from a book, have it present in the back of my mind, and as I experience things, I may be able to run into a situation in which I can reference something that I read to prepare me to deal with it. Not necessarily give me the solution, but at least I will have a background of what it's like. Emergency trainings. To me, experiencing a drill is better than reading on paper. Okay, so in the case of a fire, this is your escape route. Look at this paper and sign off on it. It's like, this building has many exits. How do I know that the exit I'm looking at on the paper matches the exit that I'm thinking about in person, in real time? That would be an example in which something that's printed and you read may not be effective. Now, if there's something that I'm grateful for when I was a teen, is that I read the psychology chapters of some of my science books. It helped me understand the struggle I was having with my mom, because there was a period in which we were not getting along. We were fighting a lot and everything. And the part that helped me was a chapter that described how you as a teen are going to change. And I remember vividly thinking that I had the key, the answers to rid the world of all evil. But it wasn't until I got out here and I started doing things like working and conversing with veterans that I thought, oh, okay, in theory, this sounds great, but when corruption is included, all of that goes to hell. When it comes to my mom, it helped that I kept reading up until older age, because I was able to pinpoint the changes that my mom was undergoing, and I could be like, oh, okay, so she's entering a new stage in her life herself. With aging come these things that I never would have considered, because I'm just used to my mom being my mom. My mom, in a sense, is my superior. My mom has always been my manager. What do you mean she's gonna start tripping? What do you mean she's gonna start losing some of her senses? What do you mean she's gonna get physically weaker in some areas? What do you mean emotionally she's going to change? And what? I'm the emotional person, because I'm the young one who's growing up and all that. So reading something like that was useful to bring me down to earth and be like, sure, I'm going through changes, but my changes are not different from hers. Like, the process of changing is what it is, it's change. But being aware of it, how my changes are going to manifest versus hers, that is where our conflict was coming from. Having read became useful. At the same time, what was most important was experiencing that. Although that is something I'm going to experience once in my life, say I only have one mom and I only go through that age once and all that, at least if I were to meet a teenager who starts talking shit about their relationship with their mother, let's say a young girl telling me that she's going through shit with her mom, I would be like, you know what? I cannot say I'm going to relate to 100% of what you're saying. I can't say that's exactly how it went with my mom, but I can talk about the similarities, which is consider the fact that you're in an evolutionary stage, she is in a evolutionary stage. So try to sit down and think about what are the things that are hitting your mom right now and how it's affecting her in her ability to be there for you. That is something that back in the day I didn't do because it simply did not occur to me. And it also doesn't help that stuff like that I always kept private, and it's not like I was actively talking to anybody. And I may have shared some anecdotes with some teachers, but it's not like my teachers could immediately be like, oh yeah, so with your mom, this is what you do and this is what you say, this is what you don't do or say. You know, nothing like that. I can't expect that from them. But at least as someone who lived through that, especially given that my mom, I would say we have a fairly decent age gap. That may also have something to do with that. Whereas some people tend to have children a little earlier. That makes sense, you know. But yeah, I think that nothing surpasses experiential learning. But experiential learning that's combined with a good theoretical learning, of course, it's equally beneficial. But if I had to pick one way to go as someone who doesn't read, I can say that learning through experience has been great for me. In fact, I think that this is the learning style I could have benefited from the start. But I also don't want to disparage the beginning I had, you know, the way that I was brought up and my school experience and everything. It was helpful, but now I'm just grateful that the chapter in my life that I'm in currently, I can control it to where if there's something I need to learn, I can pick the way I go about learning it. Whereas before, as I was growing up, that wasn't really a choice. To conclude, I think that learning from experience, learning from life itself is the best teacher, even if it's painful sometimes. Learning from written sources is great as an intro, as a guide to keep you aware. But let's face it, not everybody who reads a piece of material can say that what they read manifests how they read it, because we all have individual results. And how could something that's written, something written that is like that pretty much permanently, how can that compete against the dynamic of learning from experience? So anyways, you guys, that's it from me. Again, I'm not saying that learning from written sources is bad. Quite the contrary. There's a lot of people who find success and great advice in that form. And some people just genuinely may not do well learning from others or putting themselves out there. So getting shut in their own little world with a book is the way for them to excel. I can only speak for myself and why I think that experiential learning would be the superior way to learn. Because what's the point of you reading things through books if what you're reading about you're not going to go through? I think that if you can combine what you're reading about and living it, that's the ultimate way to learn. I'm talking about legit nonfiction things, practical things. Not, well, of course, you're not going to experience something fictional that you read because it's fiction. You know, like, refrain from thinking that. But yeah, that's pretty much it from me.